Welcome back to part 3. We're talking to Sue and Cece about what it was like growing up and being children during World War III. There's 2 parts before, but in part 3 we start talking about technology and the old versus the new. And then we get into current situations. It's very interesting, the comments and the ideas that they have of what we need if we were to go into a World War III, of what they think would help the moms help the children during that time, if it was to ever happen. I don't think it would ever happen. Welcome back. This is part 3. It's the last part of the World War II conversations we had with Sue and Cece of what it was like growing up during World War II. In this episode, we are going to touch on technology, the old versus the new, and what the media was like and what they got away from it, or what they got from it. We also, at the very end, start talking about if we ever were to go back into a war, World War III, what would that look like? And if they had any suggestions on how we could help the children of today go through something that they had to go through. Let's continue. So today, men that serve in the military are able to Skype and video chat with their family back home. How did you guys communicate with the men that were overseas?
Well, it wasn't by any of those. I would imagine a letter was the...
Letters.
Yeah.
What was the length of time between letters?
Well, what were they doing? Did they have time to write, or were they otherwise occupied, or,
It's the whole waiting concept. I don't think the children of today understand.
No.
When they want to watch a TV show, they don't have to wait the week for the new episode to come. They can binge watch the whole episode. The concept of them, wanting to talk to Dad and Dad not being there, and they'd have to sit down and write a letter, and then they'd have to mail it and wait for it to get there, wait for him to reply, and wait for it to come back. That's a totally foreign concept for kids today.
Okay, but we knew nothing else.
Yeah.
And they know nothing but what they have. So kids are kids are kids.
But hearing your take on it is interesting for children of today. Like, really? What was I sent my granddaughter a photograph and negatives. The negatives, I found an old negative strip or an old film canister, and I went and I took it and got it developed. It was really hard finding somebody to develop it.
Must have to be sent out of the area.
Yeah.
Black and white for sure has to go back east.
And then, so, say you can take it to Salem, an hour and 10 minutes away. I had to take the film. So I sent her the negatives with the pictures, because the pictures were of her mom. And the look on her face her mom and I were explaining it to her, she's used to it being on the phone and you just flip through the phone and you look at it. Now she's holding this picture in her hand, and that wasn't as crazy. But when she's looking at this strip of sepia colored, and her mom's saying, hold it up to the light, and she's like, why do I want to do that? And she's like, so you can see the picture. And she's like, what? That was interesting. Teaching our new generation the old ways of doing things was very interesting watching.
I guess they get really confused with dial telephones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you see those 2 kids they had on television? They gave them a phone and told them to make a call. These 2 teenage boys, they had no idea how to work it.
What?
And I'm listening to an old English mystery right now, and they're calling it the dog and bone. The dog, and then you put the bone on.
I never even.
I had never heard that, but makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's interesting, the ways that things were done in the olden days. Waiting for a letter could seem like torture to a young kid today.
But yeah, because they didn't know anything different.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to get their information.
And to slow down and enjoy life a little bit more.
So I know you talked about community, Sue, and living in a community in Portland. Did it change from the Great Depression during World War II? Did it become more divided, or did you guys pull together? Do you remember any of that?
Never noticed any difference.
Okay,
We,
good.
you know, kids are kids, and these are our friends, and it was a stable community, so there weren't a great number of new faces showing up, and
Except you did have the couple block away that left, and their house was sold, and then you had the kid at school, the Japanese friend of yours at school.
this happened, so that was that.
Yeah,
You know, on
and you
to,
moved on.
Yeah.
Wow. So I have Keith in the Portland area. He sent a question in. He said, so much of the West Coast was full of special military bases due to the war in the Pacific. My question is, how was it explained to you as kids? Did you guys get sat down and talked to about it?
No,
No? Interesting.
this is something that happened, you know.
There
it
were a lot of-
wasn't next door or even around the corner, and so why?
I wonder if it was because parents today feel as if they need to sit down and tell their children and walk them through things. And I'm wondering, I'm hearing you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing you say that it just happened and this is what we went on. We didn't get sat down, we didn't get talked to. We just said this is it and we're moving on. I wonder if that's better for children.
If we had a question, we'd ask and we'd get an answer, you know, and so that was that.
Okay. What were you going to say, Mom?
Nothing, actually.
Okay, I thought you had a question. Were you in a state of readiness to move inland?
No,
No. Were you?
No, I was so close to the coast you couldn't get too far
You
farther
were-
west.
Yeah, you couldn't.
But I would have, and the roads inland were all pretty small, and
Interesting. And were there support groups in the community for families that had men that were at war? Did you know of any?
no, but there had to have been something.
Yeah.
Probably through the church. There were a lot of active churches over there.
there were signs that people hung in the window. If you had a close relative in the service, you hung a blue star in the window.
You didn't want the gold stars.
Yeah. Red border, white background, blue star. And yes, if your relative died, it was a gold star.
So
And you looked at a gold star and you felt bad. You knew that those people had lost somebody.
Yes.
did you show them more grace, or were you kinder to them, or just
You were raised to be kind to
Yes.
everybody. You
Yes.
respected other people, and you knew that they had rights just as you did.
And if
Yeah.
you did half the stuff that you see on television, you'd have had a bottom that was so sore you'd have never sat down again. My grandparents would never have stood for that.
Yeah.
And respect, you pay respect to your elders, to your, the police and I don't know about the government then, but the firemen and all that, you respected them. They did things to help you. Those were the heroes.
And children were seen but not heard. Children were taken everywhere. You didn't hire babysitters or haul them off to the care center or whatever. But the children were very quiet and listened.
what role did your family play in the war effort? You said your mom went back to school to substitute teach,
Yeah.
and Grandpa Bobby went.
He was an MP, worked on the gates.
Okay.
Nanny just doubled down on her canning and preserving and everything. And my mom and dad were at the shipyards until he got called.
Okay.
And then
Well, and
Yeah.
everybody did their thing
Yeah.
to collect and recycle,
Mhm.
and this is for the war effort, and everybody did.
Well,
I
you've
think.
almost had to, because how do
Yeah.
you, those poor people didn't know if they were going to win or not. What about the poor English people? are we going to win this war, or are we going to start speaking German? Yeah, they had to.
So that's an interesting. What were the stereotypes on other countries prior to war? Globalization and media wasn't what it was now. So what were there any? What were not your thoughts, but what were the thoughts that you saw on other countries? If you want to answer, or did you not have any thoughts?
We, if you could answer that question by saying, okay, go home and turn everything electronic off, and it's not coming back on again. And you did have a radio. You could listen to that in the evenings. Nobody that I know of did in the daytime. And that's what you had. And everybody, you didn't know much about the other people. At least we didn't.
So you didn't have any idea on other countries?
I was very small, and I didn't see my grandparents they'd listen to the news.
At our beach cabin, I can remember there was a train that went through twice a day from Tillamook to Portland, and it was loaded with metal, scrap metal.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandma would look at that and say, that is going to Japan or Germany. I can't remember which one she said. But they are going to melt it into bullets and shoot at us. And
Why would they
Grandma, what are you? I just did not understand.
It would probably be realistically the other way around. We'd be making the bullets.
No,
They
she
sent that over?
saw this scrap metal, and apparently everybody knew that it was being sold overseas.
So she didn't like the fact that it was being
No.
sold overseas.
So she was leery before
Yeah.
December 7th, yes.
Oh, that was before. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kristen from Fresno asked, what was the news media like back then? I'm going to read all of it. What was the news media like back then? Did you feel like you were being told the truth? Were you divided at home, or more of a community that put sides down to work together? And did each person have their own source for the news? Looking back now, would you say the news was telling you the truth, or more of a propaganda type news that was going on during the time? So basically, the news media, we had already talked about it earlier, being in at the movie theaters, the radio at night. You got the paper once a week, and you got it every day. You had a paper boy. Did you feel the news at the time, did you feel as if it was telling you the truth?
Absolutely.
Okay, you?
The cartoons were excellent.
I think
I don't know.
in those days we had basically what turned into ABC, CBS, and NBC.
Mm-hmm.
There were not all these different
Offshoots.
sources trying to be the source that everybody listened to.
Trying to get the massive headlines so everybody would watch them.
I think it was very much like, see if you think, it was like us against them. You know, United States and all the citizens and everybody that was up and running and breathing, and the dog next door was all against them.
Yes. And
it
we
was so
were united
totally
and so proud of our country and what it stood for.
The United.
Yes.
Yeah. The
Yes.
United. Which we're not right now.
No, we are not.
We're very divided.
Yes.
I wouldn't trust any of the news now.
So,
And I just recently heard something that got me all upset. Now I just don't believe anybody.
Kristen in Fresno also asked, what was segregation really like versus what we hear and read about in the history books? The segregation for up here was more or less the Japanese were sent to concentration camps or camps. So question, if you guys think, if World War III was to happen today, what advice would you give to the mothers to help their children through it?
I can't think of anything that I could say.
Let them be kids. They don't need to solve the problem. They can just be kids. Let the grown-ups deal with it. Although the kids would probably do a better job.
Love your kids.
Yeah,
your
that's
kids.
where it all starts. You know, you've got a whole generation that doesn't eat broccoli because McDonald's doesn't serve it. See what they're doing?
I hadn't heard that.
Because I made it up.
She makes up a lot.
Okay, that I'll go with.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just kids need to be kids, and kids need to be taught values, the ones that you were taught. Because where else are they going to find out these things if their parents and grandparents don't get in there and say, hey, you know this green thing used to grow. It was kind of wiggly on top, and you should try it. Put some cheese on it. No?
Okay.
I think the one piece of advice that I would give, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to always find ways to come together as a community and not let them divide you.
And
Excellent.
the family is the most important thing. Keep working on the family and keeping it close, and then other things will go out.
And working out to your
what you're
neighbors.
saying, yeah, I know my neighbors.
Because I think we can, and I would love to come back and all have a brainstorming session with you guys on community. But I think that for us, if we ever went through something like that, we would need to learn how to build a community and build it quickly.
You're going to, if that happened to us, to you, you would draw back on what you were raised like, what your grandmother and great-grandmother taught you, what you learned from us. You know, that's what would keep you going through it. Not any of the nonsense that's on television at night.
Exactly. You're 100% correct. But what I'm concerned about is the people that weren't raised with the values that I was raised. The get in, the get it together, the gather, the fight, the barbecues, the community. That's what, they don't have that. So how do we teach the generation that doesn't have that, that thinks everything has to be a social justice right?
You know, families forever. My folks thought that they were going to make my life better than theirs. And my husband and I thought we could improve for our kids, and our kids are doing what they can, and so on and so on. And last weekend, the first time that the restaurants opened after the COVID closures, I understand some of them had to close because the people didn't know how to behave and were creating havoc in the restaurants.
Oh, wow.
They're doing it on the airlines too.
Oh yes.
Did you see that lady?
hear a
They
lot
duct
about
taped the
that.
seat.
No, I missed that.
That was good.
I've gotten so I don't. The only news I watch is the local news, and even some of that I don't listen to
Yeah.
because
Wow.
I just am so tired of hearing all these conflicting.
You're right.
What advice, knowing that we're keeping, what advice would you give to anybody on how to keep the spirits up for them and their children? What do you think, having both lived through it, not realizing, anything was any different, but going through it today, like we just got through a year of COVID, and it looks like we may be going back into it. What would be a way that you would keep your spirits up? I'm hearing you say you don't watch much of the news because it's conflicting anymore.
I'm thinking about moving to New Zealand. Sounds like it'd be a good place. Got a lot of sheep.
If it's a world war, they're part of the world. They'll be involved in the war at
Yeah,
some
but I'll have a
point.
lot of sheep to spin.
I'll send you with shears. You can take her spinning wheel.
I have my own. Don't worry. I'm not going to take your spinning wheel.
What would you? No, but seriously, it's an interesting question. How would you keep your spirits up?
I'd try to have more family get-togethers, interaction in the family,
Okay.
starting with the core, Ma and Pa and the kids, and then
Working your way out.
To the extended family.
the
Yes.
cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents, and
Friends and neighbors.
absolutely.
Yeah, you got to stick together because the isolation was terrible.
Right now, I don't really know the people who live next door. This
Not
is
that bad,
different.
but
Well,
unlike the White House across the street, do you know them?
every time she sits out on the front porch, I run over and say hi.
I would love to
She's
have you as a
gorgeous.
neighbor. Oh my gosh.
It's a gorgeous house. I like
sit
this
out.
one.
Yeah, I sit outside. Literally, I'm in the country, and I sit outside, and I specifically put chairs right at the top of our drive. So when people are driving up the road, and I'm like, I'm gonna sit out there and have my dinner or a cup of coffee. Nobody ever stops. I'm like,
That is the one big thing that has changed.
Everybody's-
We knew everybody.
Yeah.
Fourplex next door knew all four families. Some of them had kids, some of them didn't, but we knew them anyway. You know, and everybody has become so frightened.
yeah. That's
We
sad.
need to go out of our way to make friends with them.
I try.
I know.
Well, so they can see your face. You have a beautiful face. I want them to see your face.
I was just thinking about this guy in the greenhouse.
I think. Do you think it's the? I know it's not. Like I want to go and meet these people. I want to talk to the people. I don't want to keep them from what they're doing. But I wonder if people just don't know how to reach out anymore. If they
They're
just.
afraid to.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a very scary person.
One of the neighbors sends a bouquet of flowers
Oh, nice.
to people that move in.
Oh,
And
nice.
I don't think any of them ever thanked her.
That's outrageous.
So, as the war ended, things took a massive turn for the better. What were the lessons that stood out to both of you, if you can remember them, that you never wanted to forget?
Probably the togetherness at the end when we actually had won.
Hey, I was delighted the rationing was over. And that we could buy shoes and meat, and we didn't have to worry that that everything might disappear.
So you did worry.
Well,
Of course you did. You didn't know what was coming down.
I want bananas. Well, I'm sorry, there aren't any. Maybe tomorrow there won't be carrots, or broccoli.
My
Or-
dogs would be concerned if there was no carrots.
So this was a concern. I don't know that I worried about it.
Your parents are going to take care of you.
Somehow, yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting. So, Tenora from Tillamook asked both of you, looking at today and back then, how do you think the family values have changed, or have they just disappeared?
I think a lot of them disappeared.
They certainly became lax. We stopped expecting things of our children. We tried to make a better life for them, and what we've done is complicate their lives just beyond belief.
Interesting statement.
Remember the old days when you wanted something? I've talked to Tabitha about this before. And your kids wanted something and you said no. Well, maybe you'd have to say it a second time. That's pretty much it. But now I watch people I know whose children, oh, come on, Mom, come on. Come on, my friends have it. Come on. And then finally the parent just gives up. And so the kids learned one thing. I only have to last 6 times and I'll get it. And you lost control forever.
Yeah.
Well, that's why the restaurants closed the other day.
Yeah. Besides, nobody wants to work in them. Our town is full of help wanted signs.
Oh, yeah.
So, just to reiterate, and then I have a few more questions after that.
I'm getting older.
You are getting older, but you're beautiful and you age so well. And what's the one thing I tell you? Age is not something that's
It's a
awarded
privilege.
to everybody. So, you had no television.
Nope.
No city playgrounds. Did you have a playground?
The schoolyard.
The schoolyard?
And there was a park. We had bicycles, and we could ride over to Irving Park and play on swing sets there. And
Nice.
Mine were all too far away.
Yours were too far away?
we used to play marbles. I don't
Oh,
think anybody
I love
played
marbles.
And pick up sticks.
We'd dig 5 spots and shoot And if you landed in one of the pits and somebody else was able to shoot into that pit, they got your marble.
You're going to teach me to play marbles one of these days. I like jacks and pickup sticks.
Well, the kids across
Hopscotch.
the street, believe it or not, there are 5 of them, they're drawing on the sidewalk, they're doing
Good.
hopscotch. I just think that's great.
And it could rain someday and it'll wash it all up.
Right.
That's great.
So there's a lack of television in your early years that meant that you had little understanding of what the world was like. Is that actually true?
Yeah, and you got more imagination going.
Okay, but did
And when you listen to the radio and you listen to the Lone Ranger, you could see
scary.
him riding that beautiful silver horse, you know. And then when he came to television, you know,
that's not what it looked like in my
No.
brain.
No. We're really missing something by going too far with certain.
Remember the guy with the squeaky door? He had a real squeaky door.
Oh, indeed, Sunday nights.
Oh, you could see him. Those radio shows were so frightening
Well,
because you were making it up in your mind.
depending
Whoa.
on what the thing was, some of the soap operas were funny as all get out. You could see these women, and we're no longer using our imagination. It's
No,
just
that's the
all
point.
too plain
All
spelled
done
out
for
for
us.
us.
Did you have a phone in your house?
Yes,
Did you have a phone in your house?
on the wall.
Corded to the wall?
Mine was on that little square thing next to his
Oh
chair.
yes, yours was in the living room but sitting with a cord.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, computers didn't exist. You played by yourself, and you played by yourself. You
Most of
were
the time.
talking about most of the time. You had a whole family, a whole neighborhood of kids that you played with.
I played mainly alone, but in the evenings sometimes there'd be the neighborhood kids.
Okay, so I had a couple people send me questions at the last minute, and I just wanted to ask them. Elizabeth from Fresno was asking, how was the government assistance managed? And she read about the victory gardens, the pamphlets on how to conserve and soup line rationing. We talked about the victory gardens. We talked about the pamphlets. Did you get any pamphlets?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
any.
Do you know if Nanny did?
She had a lot of stuff on that dining room table. Yeah, but I didn't read them. I'd like to read that book, though.
Yes, the book on food was very interesting. Was there more resilience on church and community, and did the government get involved in anything like that?
I don't know if they got involved, but the church was really, really, all the churches are really, really big.
Was that the same for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go to church on Sundays?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sunday school.
Sunday school? And you,
I went
Nanny,
with Nanny.
took you. Did you guys volunteer or did your families volunteer in any way?
Nanny was very much a loner.
Okay.
She taught me that if you went next door, if I came to your house and borrowed a cookie sheet, I had to bring it back full of cookies. She didn't do that kind of stuff very often.
So she always made sure she filled things, which was very. So Natasha, and I want to say she's in Florida now. She's talking about the volunteering and how often did you hear about the activity, the active duty? How often did you hear back from the soldiers or what was going on? How often did you hear back from your uncles?
Well, I don't really remember, but I know if there was a letter that came, it was on the dining room table and everybody read it.
Everybody read it.
Yeah.
Shared the news.
Oh, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
my dad was a block warden in Portland for air raid warden, block warden, whatever. He volunteered for that.
Okay.
That was useful. Yeah.
So explain what he did. What was that?
Well, I don't really know. He was just to make sure that, if an emergency arose, that everybody was prepared to shelter or where to go or what to do in case of emergency, and he would be the one that would have to contact each and every house.
Would he be responsible for the lights and the window coverings
No.
too? That was a separate
We
person?
didn't need coverings in Portland.
Oh, okay.
Really?
You're not that far from the ocean.
So that but she's got
Portland?
mountains.
About an hour? Yeah, you're not right on the...
But see, what they were concerned about was seeing a ship pass
Oh, I'm
right
seeing
on
the
the
profile.
ocean. A U-boat
Yeah.
sitting out there watching an American ship go by.
That happened back on the East Coast a lot.
What was your worst and your best days like as kids? You're just like, they were all the same? It was just a
Well,
day?
it sure seemed to me they were all the same.
Yeah, don't remember any big.
Did they talk about the war in school for you?
I can't remember that they did. We were very busy studying whatever subject it was, whether it was nature study or art or history or mathematics.
You would have liked the art. You'd
Yeah.
have done good in that.
So they were teaching you and continuing on while they were out working.
I don't think that the idea, different than it is now, but I think they were more in the shelter the kids and teach them what they should be learning, and don't sit them down and try to tell them that the Japanese are coming or whatever and scare the shit out the hell out of them.
Did you just say a
I
bad
didn't
word?
mean to.
And I have it on camera.
Oh no, edit that out.
How much are you going to pay her to?
Thank you.
I never talk like that, do I?
No, you never do. Which is why I had to stop and go, wait, did I hear that correctly? Kristen, did you hear that? It's a very interesting concept what you were saying, Mom, because it seems from everything that I have been talking to you about last time and this time, it seems like the children were more sheltered and they flourished from it rather than being hindered with the adult ideas and the adult, this is what's going on and we need to tell you. It just seems like a heavy weight of a burden that a child really doesn't need to have.
Yeah, we were children, and
Yeah.
we were treated like children, and we were expected to act like children.
What kind of support did families receive?
Monetary? None.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't
Okay.
remember anything.
Anything?
You wanted to eat, you worked to make money to buy food to eat.
That's a very interesting question, though, because it leads me to wonder: did you received?
Welfare?
No, not money, but what kind of assistance did you receive from anybody on learning how to garden? If you didn't know how to garden, who taught you?
I think that would come from the churches and the people at the churches. The one that Nanny and I went to was a Congregational Church in SoCal, and they were far-reaching. I mean, they were involved in all kinds of stuff.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I didn't have to learn. My dad was doing it, so... And I got to go out and pull weeds, but all I had to know was that's a weed, pull it, so...
And you didn't get paid for snails either.
No.
Oh,
Or killing the weeds or anything.
So all of these chores that you did they harm and scar your childhood for life?
Oh yes, you can tell, I died at a very early age. It just...
They were good for us, and they all should do it.
Aww. Did you gain more from life learning early on by doing the chores than you think you would have if you didn't?
Oh, I'm sure.
And she felt part of a group, part of a family, part of a community.
You've got something there. By doing chores, you feel part of a family.
Yeah, that's why there's a lot of gangs and things. They don't have anybody to become part of. They just go on among themselves and create havoc.
One of the saddest days of my life was a couple of years ago. There was a knock on the front door, and there was a little boy standing there, maybe 11, 12 years old, And he said, "Lady, do you have a job I could do? I'm really good at pulling weeds and cutting grass."
Immediately hired.
And I had nothing that I had to tell him to come back in the spring, or come back when.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I could really use that guy.
Collect
Yeah.
names next time.
Yeah.
Maybe he can drive.
Right. Yeah, I could really use him. Thank you. Thank you for letting me interview you.
Oh, this was fun.
Was it fun? It's interesting learning the difference from back then when everybody, like you said was united, and you said came together, and we were all fighting a common enemy.
It was like brothers and sisters. They pick on each other, but if somebody from outside comes in,
Yes.
they're all band together.
Yeah.
That's a very good analogy. Thank you for letting me interview you.
I had a choice.
Yeah, you are my mother. You could say no.
Probably not.
With that being said, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, smash that notification bell. And if you have any questions on what it's like to be in a community or to build a community, how to build a community, and you want ideas, let me know in the comment section below, and we will talk to you guys later. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Ginger. Thanks, Mom. There you go, folks. Thank you so very much for sticking with me and watching all the way. It seems like they all had a common goal. They all had a common theme of fight the enemy, and they knew who the enemy was. They didn't have a lot of different media bombarding them, and it was the community that they had built around them that got them through it. And I find that very interesting, because the community is what social media has pretty much stolen from us. And it's going to take us really working and fighting to get that back. So what are ways that we could be building our community? How could we know our neighbors? What could we do that would get us to have our neighbors trusting us more, talking to us, and sharing life with us? That's a very interesting concept. We're so tight-knit and closed into our homes, some of us, not all of us, that we tend to forget that we actually have neighbors next door to us. Do you know all of the neighbors that surround your property? And including your backdoor neighbor, if you have one. That was given to me as a challenge about a year ago. And I have to tell you, I knew all but a few. And I made it a point to get to know those few. A topic of conversation that's recently come up at our dinner table was the 70s, and what it was like growing up as children with massive inflation and an oil crisis. My husband and I both grew up in the 70s, and those were both front and center. I remember quite literally sitting in line eating my breakfast in the white Ford on the specific Tuesday when we were allowed to get gas. So I think my husband and I might come on and do an interview and explain or talk about what it was like for us being children in the 70s, knowing that you ate your dinner because it was pretty hard for your parents to put it on the dinner table. So I think we turned out pretty good. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and like and subscribe if you don't mind, to see more videos. We'll talk to you later. Welcome back. We are on our final it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I am so tired. You're so tired too. You've just collapsed at the door, my poor cat. I have 2 kittens, and one of them is Charlie. Wants to be with me, and he just like fell. I have a cat climbing up my leg. Like literally, I have a cat climbing up my leg. This is my life. This is Henry. Oh. The That's Henry. Say hello, Henry. Say hello. Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go to bed? Are you tired? Oh, yeah, you're tired. You're a tired baby. Yeah, okay. We're done for the night. We're done. It's 2 o'clock in the morning.